Welcome to the More Gems Show. I'm your host, Steve Moriarty, and with me tonight are my two sons, Michael, who's in charge of the production, and Jeffrey, who will be handling the chat tonight.
How we doing, everybody? Just to let you guys know, throughout the show, when Steve is talking about some of the gemstones that we have, I'll be posting the links to those gems in the chat so you can easily go see them. Otherwise, you can go to MoreGems.com and there is a link there to see all the stones. With the chat on, for the people on YouTube, you do need to be logged in to chat. There's a lot of chatter going on each week in there, but you won't be able to see it without logging in. We are also going to be on Facebook Live, so you can search Moriarty's Gem Art on Facebook, and there is a live show there as well. I think that's it.
Okay, thanks, Jeff. So tonight we're featuring ring-sized stones. They're good for pendants also, but the last few weeks we've had some very large stones that aren't suitable for rings. So we're focusing a little more on smaller gems, and that's stones from 1 carat to 4 carat size. And let me show you a couple of rings with those size stones in them. So this is a pink Spinel with a carat 75 in it. So they're not small stones, but they just fit rings well. And this is probably the large end of what we're doing, which is this is a 3 carat stone. We may have a few 4 caraters. This is a Tanzanite with demantoid garnets on the side. This one apparently is spoken for already, but so that's the size stones we're dealing with tonight. To find the stones, you go to More Gems, and there's a green bar at the top of the first page that's going to lead you to all these stones in case you want to buy something. And if you want to buy, we do have payment plans, 4 payments or credit card. You can do layaway, but you'd have to call tomorrow and set that up. We require a 20% down payment. A couple of explanations of some of the things I'll be talking about. The pricing that's on them. We have an appraised price, and then we have our price. And for tonight, we're also offering 15% off, and that's using coupon code GEMSHOW3. This is our 3rd Gem Show in this series, and we're going to be doing this every Wednesday night, 7:05 p.m. Central Time, which is Chicago time. So keep following us, and we'll keep showing you some new things. Let's see. So the pricing that we're doing is based on pricing that's done in the Gem Guide. The Gem Guide is a market-driven independent pricing guide where they go around to the major trade shows and price gems, and then they set a suggested wholesale price for stones that we use for a retail pricing. This is used worldwide. And it's a way for us to understand where the pricing of things is, and that's what our appraised price is based on. And then what you're going to see online, like this first stone coming up at $690, is our price, and then you'll take 15% off that. Also online, you're going to see an overall quality rating. And that's something I've done recently on most of the stones I have. You're going to find it on there. And this is the sheet I use to grade each stone. I'm doing it, I'm the owner, and I'm the appraiser, so a little bit of conflict, but not really. What it really does for us, it makes me sit down and really look close at every stone, and try and put a quality to it. Just makes me grade the clarity better. I break down the color into daylight and incandescent, because many of these stones shift colors in different lights. So trying to give you a little more accurate idea with a number. It's a 1 to 1,000 number, as to just what the quality of this stone is, rather than like in Tanzanite, everybody uses AA, AAA, quad A. They've gone to 5A, you know, so it gets to mean nothing. At least I break everything down and try and pinpoint the quality of the stones. So if you look on More Gems, you'll see a quality rating for most of these stones. I haven't done them all. I've just started doing this recently, so hopefully it helps us out. So the first stone we're going to show you is a Sunstone from Oregon. This comes from the Sunstone Butte mine. Me and my two sons have been there twice. It's in the middle of nowhere. I've probably told you this before, but it literally is in the middle of nowhere. It's an hour and a half any direction, and there's nothing. But it's really a cool place, and they're finding some great stones. Sunstone Butte Mine is a relatively new mine that's producing some interesting colors that we haven't seen before, including this stone. This is a kind of a peach color, and unique color. And this is a stone I cut into it's a all step cut pavilion, step cut crown. And just to give you an idea of what it looks like on a ring. So this is actually a wax model. And this wax model is produced on this machine behind me, which this is a rapid prototyper. My nephew's the designer under the name Christopher Michael Designs. And we use this machine. This will produce a wax in 15, 20 minutes. That we cast from, and that's what you're seeing with this piece here. That's a wax model, and you can see the supports that it's grown with. And this particular piece has diamonds down the side, so each there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 diamonds, or 5 or 6 down each side. So this is a nice size stone. I think it's a 2 carat 73, 2 carat 86. So it'd make a nice ring, and it's a big enough size for a pendant. Where's my information? So this stone, it appraises at $1,350. Our price is $690, and if you use the coupon Gem Show 3, you're going to get 15% off that. So a really nice stone. Beautiful peach color, clean, just bright. So that's from Oregon. And Oregon, it's a place that you can go and mine yourself. You can't mine the Sunstone Butte. He doesn't do fee mining. But there are several places up there that do fee mine, and you can find some really nice stones. And not too far away, you can go to Nevada to the opal mines. So it makes a great trip for those of you that like to go and do your own mining. And next up is a chrome tourmaline. Chrome tourmaline comes from Tanzania. Chrome is the coloring agent. That's what makes it this vivid green. Most tourmalines are more yellowy green. This is a bluish green color. Chrome tourmaline is the highest valued of the greens other than Peridot tourmaline. This one weighs 2 carat 2. Price value is $24.99. And we have it for $11.90, and of course 15% off with Gem Show 2. This does come from Tanzania. It's a mixed oval cut, nice clean stone, just really a bright, vivid color. A lot of problems with these stones. I don't cut them anymore. The problem is the rough looks great, and then they cut over dark. The biggest problem with chrome tourmaline is they're too dark, and it's why you don't get stones much larger than this typically. They just turn almost black and become undesirable because of that. So me and most of my friends that cut, we just quit cutting it and buy them cut because it's just too hard to judge the rough. Let's see. So that's chrome tourmaline. And next is another tourmaline. This is a bicolor and actually is tricolor. There's a little clear zone down the center of it. So these form, they grow lengthwise. They grow like a pencil. The crystals look like pencils. Actually, I have a couple of them here. So this is a really nice crystal. It's actually a twin. So this is a nice clean crystal. Would cut a great gem, but the crystal's just too nice as it is. So probably gonna just mount it as a pendant in a natural crystal. But as these grow, they start from down here and they grow, and as they're growing, the trace elements that cause the color in these stones changes, and that's why you get the change in the color. And here's another one. Really unique stones, rare stones to form like this. Good demand for them. This particular stone weighs 2.31 carat. 1140 is the appraised price. 990 is the price we have on it. I don't think that is that right price on that? I'm not sure. We'll have to look into this a little more. Not positive about that price. So look online and it'll be accurate on there. What is it? It's accurate. Okay. 990 is the quality, or anyway, look online. Sorry about that. And that's a bicolor tourmaline, or actually a tricolor, because there's a little clear zone down the center, makes it a tricolor. Not a real distinct tricolor, but definitely has that clear zone and extra benefit. Next stone we have is Marilani Mint Garnet. Marilani is the home of the miners of Tanzanite, because this is a byproduct of the Tanzanite mines. A very sporadic production. Most years it has not been available, but since 2014 it has been available. And I expect it will change again, because it's just been sporadic production throughout my time in the business, and generally not available, but currently available. It's a nice bright stone. It's a Growler Garnet. Same as Sapphire garnet, just a lighter color. Some differences to it because this stone does fluoresce, whereas Savarite doesn't. But both of them are Growlers. This is carat 73, and appraised price is $1,860. Our price $1,150, and take another 10%. My son's wanting me to show this stone, but I just flipped it off the table out of the tweezers, so can't show it to you. Just have to use the picture and the video of the stone. Put that video up, Jeff. It's just such a beautiful, bright stone. The Marilani mints are desirable because of the blue color to them, just like Savarite. A little bit of blue to the green color is what makes them very desirable. I do have a little natural crystal.
We got a question there.
Oh, okay.
So we cut in with a few questions that we've had since you've been chatting. So Matthew, with the tourmaline that you just showed, now he's from Asia, and he says they call it watermelon tourmaline. Would that bicolor be considered watermelon tourmaline as well?
Well, technically, watermelon is reserved for the slices. When the crystal's sliced down the length, some of the crystals will form and look just like watermelon. And technically, in the business, watermelon is reserved for those slices. I wish I had one. We've got them here. I just don't have one handy. But they literally are a slice that looks like you took a slice out of watermelon. It's green on the outside, white, and then pink in the middle. So the faceted stones, although are commonly called watermelon, in the trade, technically we don't call them watermelon. They're bicolors, or tricolors.
Okay. One gentleman mentioned about the wax printer that we use.
Uh-huh.
I don't remember if you said it. He said it sounds incredible that it can print in 20 minutes. When he was at school for this, it would take 6 hours.
They've come a long way. They're much faster these days. And it depends on the quality you want to print. It may take an hour if you do extremely high quality, but the fast print modes, I think, are as little as 15 minutes to print a piece. So a customer can literally be standing here, and we can go back and print a piece, and they can try it on, as long as it's designed already, of course. Because this is the structure that it prints. I don't know, can you put that on there, Michael? So these are all the supports that are required to form this wax. But that's how it comes out of the machine.
Okay, one other question. This is from Alexander. He's asking if you're just starting up as a cutter and you got a tight budget, what do you think the 3 best gems to cut and sell would be?
Put me on the spot there. Well, garnets are always good. They're easy to polish and generally fairly easy to judge the rough. And of course, amethyst is another little harder to polish, but if you can get the polishing down, it is material you can buy relatively inexpensively. What else? I'm trying to think what's available currently. You don't want to do Tanzanite. Tanzanite's tough. Ethiopian Opal, is readily available, and it's something you can facet. So those are a few I would suggest. The Sunstone I wouldn't suggest because it's very, very difficult to orient the color, and because when you look at the crystals, one direction is often red and the other direction green, and there's just a lot of problems there. That'd probably be 3 of the best suggestions, and whatever comes out and is available. When they find something new, it's usually less expensive, available in quantity, and that's something to buy also. So back to this, I don't know if there you go. So this is a Marilani mint crystal, and you can see the crystal structure. So this would be a dodecahedron. It is in the cubic system. It's a fairly small gem. Won't cut maybe a 3/4 carat, but cool little crystal. So that's from Marilani in Tanzania. And our next gem is an Ethiopian Opal. And a really cool piece. I love faceting these. When you get them right, they're just beautiful. And you can facet them because they're quite transparent. So faceting does have some effect that's positive on them. It gives a unique look to the stone. People like it. It's probably my best selling of the opals is the faceted stones. I mean, if you catch the light right, you can you'll see red flashes from the faceting, which is not involved with play of color that you see in opal, but you can get red flashes off the back, which is kind of a reflection of the reddish body color that these tend to have. So the faceted opals are cool, and this one weighs 4 carat 12. Praise value at $660, our price $450, and of course 15% off with Gem Show 3. So to find the gems, you go to MoreGems.com and click on the green bar at the top of the page if you want to purchase a gem. And this would be a good one because it's really cool stuff. This material came out in 2008, was first discovered, and I got involved in 2012 and been hooked ever since. It's just hard to get away from the beauty of these stones, and available in large sizes. You saw last week we had an 83 carat stone, and I've got several that are over 80 carats. So it's something worth faceting for people that want to facet. And you will be able to find rough material. And actually on my son's website, mineralmike.com, he does have facet grade rough. And it's really nice for faceting. So might consider that. Next stone up. Not yet? Oh, a viewer question.
Yeah, somebody just... with the stone that you just displayed, you have a wax ring that you need to show that on top of.
Sure.
That's helping people
Yeah.
size.
Okay. Yeah, if I could find the Marilani Mint Garnet, I'd show that to you, but it's off roaming on the floor somewhere. I don't know. It pretty much covers this wax. Let me see if I've got... No. So it's larger stone, but definitely not too large for a ring. Yeah. Just has to be custom made to fit the stone. All right, on to the next stone, which is a Tanzanite. Now you'll find this stone on More Gems, but you'll find many, many Tanzanites on TanzaniteJewelryDesigns.com. Tanzanite is more than 50% of our entire business. We specialize in Tanzanite, and this is a great one. This one I just finished last week. It's a Barian style emerald cut, so it has a lot of brilliance and just a cool cut. The Barian has the pavilion is a brilliant style cut, and the crown is step cut, as you see. And here it is on this ring. So a nice ring size stone. Nice brilliance, really great color. And keep in mind when you look at Tanzanite, it varies dramatically when you go to different lights. This stone will be more purple in incandescent light and more blue in daylight. So this gem weighs 3 carat 11. Appraised price is $24.88, and our price at $1,470. Tanzanite's really a worthy stone to own. Hard to tell what's going to happen here in the near future. Everything's changing over there. I used to buy at the mines and buy from miners in their home village. Now all that is forbidden, and you go to jail for doing that. So it's changed to buying at the government building, and that's the only place you can trade. So hopefully I'll find out more, because that just changed this year. So I haven't been there since the changes happened, and hopefully sometime later this year I'll get to go over there and see how buying is at this time. But we've done really well with Tanzanite this year, because with the change, it also brought on a lot of goods came out that were put away, and for fear that people wouldn't be able to sell them, or they'd go to jail for selling it, because only registered dealers and suppliers can sell Tanzanite, and they have to be in the building. They have to have an office in the building that the government is in charge of, and so they get their tax, and they have a better idea of just how much Tanzanite's being sold, because up to this time, much of it went to Kenya and was exported out of Kenya, and so there was no tax on material. So hopefully it helps the country and helps the mining situation. We'll see what happens this year. We have a viewer question.
Yes. A couple questions about the Tanzanite. Bria wants to know, as far as with the hardness of Tanzanite, what are your thoughts on necklaces versus rings versus bracelets?
Well, we do them all, and we've had little problem. I mean, it is kind of the point at which it's hard enough for a ring. It's 6.5 to 7. 7 is kind of the number we put that you're going to have less issues with them, because a lot of things in the earth naturally are 7 hardness, which is quartz. So much softer than 7, they'll scratch easily. And that's the only issue you're going to run into Tanzanite. You're going to scratch the surface. It can be easily repaired. And very little weight loss to repolish the surface of a Tanzanite. So we don't hesitate to put them in any piece of jewelry. Just wear them with some caution. Know that it's not, although you can wear it every day, you just have to be a little more cautious with stones that are in the 7 and lower hardness. So this does reach 7 in hardness, but just a little care, and you'll get good wear out of it, and know that 10 years down the line you may have to repolish.
And one last question. Let's see. Can you explain the value based on the color? Like what color people should look for, and what determines the value?
Well, in general, deeper color has higher value. This is a color, I think this may just hit vivid. When we grade stones, we grade them exceptional as the top grading as far as color. Then it goes to vivid, intense, moderate, and things you don't want below that. So you'd like to be in the vivid to exceptional color range. Although many things in the moderate color, if they're cut right, are beautiful stones also. As you get darker, you get less brilliance. So a really, really deep colored stone that in some lights is just amazing, because the really deep colors, they can look like sapphires, or they just have a really extraordinary color. But you have to be concerned a little bit about wearing them in dark situations, because they'll appear dark. A stone like this one will appear bright in all lights. It's not overly intense color, but it's a beautiful color and beautiful brilliance to the stone. So it is really a great stone. But this color and deeper is the best color range, and you pay more for the stones that are vivid color and exceptional color. And definitely an effect on the price and desirability of the stone. But like I say, I've cut many, many light stones that have sold very well, just because of the brilliance. And our next stone up is a Peridot. This Peridot comes from Pakistan. Pakistan is the world's finest source of peridot, in my opinion. There are many. There are stones coming out of China. The original source was actually Arizona, was the primary source. I suppose Egypt was the original source, but in my time in business, it was all Arizona. But Arizona material was much more yellow in color, much less desirable in color. This is a unique stone. It is Asher cut, which Asher cuts are very, very popular now. Square cuts, square cushions, the Asher cut are two of the highest demand cuts in all stones. You know, and this is just a really beautiful stone that weighs 3 carats 16, appraised value of $1,264. Our price for $50. Let me get this on the mounting for you. And this is a stone you can set different directions. Let's see. Because it's square, you could set off direction like this, or you can set it square on the mounting. Yeah. Excuse my inability to work with this camera in reverse. But well, anyway, you get the idea. I mean, it's a nice size stone for a ring stone, and will make a great pendant also. So Peridot, I would love to cut more because I do love the color of this material. Just got very difficult to get. You know, it was discovered in the late 90s in Pakistan. It's actually in the Himalayas, way in the north. And it's up about 11,000 feet is where they mine it. So they get a month a year that's not snowed in. So very limited production. It went from huge production at the start and just kept dwindling. And now it's just very sporadic. And I get about 15 or 20 stones to cut a year. But really pretty stone, nice brilliance to it. And just something for the August birthstone that really is a beauty. And our next stone is, hopefully it's a sapphire, Michael. Oh, I don't know, something's old. Is that the Tanzanite?
It was your other favorite stone.
The opal.
The opal.
Oh, okay. Those faceted opals sell well, and I am going to focus more on faceting opal. It's a much more difficult thing because I can cut a cabochon in a half hour. To facet one, we're really looking at 3 to 4 hours. So it's hard to put the extra time in it, but when you see the saleability, every time I facet a good Ethiopian opal, it just sells quickly, you know. So you'll see more in the future. Am I done with this one, Jeff? Or Michael, can we move on to the sapphire? Okay, this is a really unique sapphire. This is much like a Tanzanite in that it changes color in different lights and changes much like a Tanzanite. It goes from blue in daylight to, it's kind of this would be the daylight color that you're looking at now. And it goes quite purple in incandescent light. Very, very similar to Tanzanites. But rarity is huge in this material. Very difficult to find the color changing stones like this. And of course the advantage of sapphire is the hardness, which it's the hardest colored gem we deal with. And that's true other than there are colored diamonds, which are harder. But they're also hundreds of thousands of dollars. You know, this would be the Hope Diamond. But so really pretty stone. This weighs a carat 96. And one of the more expensive stones we have, its appraised value is $5,460, and our price is $3,100. And of course, with the Gem Show 3 coupon, you're going to get about $500 or so off this stone. So a good rare stone, and something you'll enjoy wearing, and you can wear it every day without worry about the hardness of it. Not that you can't damage it, you can damage any stone, but sapphire definitely at a hardness of 9 is much more wearable. So for an engagement ring, make a great engagement ring. This stone comes from Sri Lanka, I believe, because the original owner didn't actually know the actual source. You know, places like Sri Lanka, even if a stone, like when we discovered everything in Madagascar, there were sapphires back in 1997. They discovered them there, and every Sri Lankan dealer flocked to Madagascar. And if you bought from a Sri Lankan dealer, they always said it was from Sri Lanka. And that's because Sri Lanka brought higher prices than what the stones from Madagascar would bring, just because it was a new source and people didn't know it. So every stone that came out of Madagascar was called Sri Lankan just to get that extra price. So this is a really cool stone, you know, just really good brilliance to the stone. And our next stone, I think, is another sapphire. And this is really an intense pink color. It's just such an intense color. I've really not seen stones of this intensity. And this stone also from Sri Lanka. This is actually the smallest stone tonight, but still a decent size for a ring stone. Fits this mounting well. I'll get it in there and won't get it out because it fits so well. A little small, but really pretty color. You know, most of the pinks are lighter, less intense. And I had this stone at home looking at it in incandescent light. Almost looks like a ruby. You know, in the right light, most people, you know, might think it's a ruby. But, you know, they're the same stone. Ruby and sapphire are the same exact gem, just red is ruby and any other color is sapphire. So I'm calling it a sapphire, but if you want to call it a ruby and you own it, that's fine. Just a really intense color. The appraised price on it is $6,330. Our price is $2,090. Carat 7. So our next stone is a Tanzanite. This is a square cushion. And this one's somewhat unusual just because it's mostly blue. Most of the Tanzanite will be more to the violet end of the color. This one will have some violet in it, but it is strongly to the blue. Not really much difference price-wise because it is a rarer end of the color. Most of the demand is for the mixed colors, just because that's 90% of everything that's out there is mixed blue and violet, and that's what we know Tanzanite as. But the straight blues are quite beautiful. They look more like sapphires than we'd think of them as a Tanzanite. So this has really good brilliance, and it's a 4 carat 32. So it's rated violet blue exceptional. So in our grading system, violet is the accenting color, blue, the second in the abbreviation, is the primary color, and then exceptional is the top rating of the Tanzanites. And this has an overall quality rating of 921 out of 1,000. And again, that takes in the color in 2 different lights, the clarity, and then I also break down the cutting quality into 4 different factors and then put a final number to it. So this is a 932, which is a very high number. Price on this one, appraised price is $4,752. Our price $2,320, and of course 15% off with more Gem Show 3. And if you go to Tanzanite Jewelry Designs, we have many, many Tanzanites. I've been buying as much as I can while the prices are good, and particularly the quality is higher than I've seen it in years. And again, it's just because the changing situation in Tanzania just has forced a lot of material from the vaults and put them out and made them available to us. So we have a viewer question. Go ahead, Jeff.
So, can you explain the heating of Tanzanite? I know you spoke about this at our last show, but for the people that weren't part of that show, can you tell us the process and why you do it?
Well, and we do have a video online of the complete heating process. It's on YouTube, and I think if you probably look up Tanzanite heating and in More Gems, and you probably find it. But it's not a deeply involved process. It's just getting a stone up to over 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit and not damaging it in the process. And you don't damage it by protecting it. I pack it in an investment powder, which is what we use for casting. It just buffers the heat from the oven much slower. And I take 24 hours to heat the stone, so it goes up slowly, turns off, and cools off slowly. So you don't get damage, when there's any inclusions, which most of the tanzanites I have are totally clean, but sometimes there's crystals in them or needles. And if you take your time at it, they won't expand rapidly and fracture. But still, sometimes you do get fracturing from inclusions. If there's anything to do with liquids or gases in a crystal, they can expand and cause fractures. You'll commonly see it. And that's one thing to keep in mind in your care of tanzanite is make sure that if you ever give it to a jeweler to clean, they never use steam on it because it's these sudden heat shocks that can damage tanzanite. I've seen it many times where the whole inside of the stone is fractured, and it's very identifiable what happened to it. It was steam. Steam is something we use on diamonds. You can use it on sapphires, rubies, quite a few stones, but most stones just don't handle heat shock real well, so you never want to steam a stone. Most tanzanites will handle an ultrasonic cleaner, which is another method we use for cleaning. But the steamer, which the unwary jeweler may use on a stone, will cause permanent damage. It'll really destroy a tanzanite, and many of the stones that we carry just won't handle steam.
And just one follow-up.
Uh-huh.
How long when you're about to heat up a stone, how do you know how long it should be heated for?
Long is not the question. How high is the only question. Because a stone that's totally clean, I could probably heat it in a half hour and be safe. But you just rather be careful. It's not a length of time. I usually let them set at temperature. Once they get up to 1,050, I'll let them set for an hour and a half just to make sure that the vial I've got allows the temperature to seep into it and heat the stone to that temperature. But once it reaches the temperature, I'm sure if it got to that temperature for 10 seconds, it's probably enough to alter the color. Okay, cool. Next stone is another Sunstone. Again, comes from Sunstone Butte. This is really a beautiful reddish orange color. This is one of the colors I prefer in the Sunstone. Find my wax here. And this is a really good intense color. You know, it's very difficult to find this color from any of the mines. You know, just a nice bright stone. This particular stone weighs 2 carat 32, appraised value of $10.50, and our price is $3.72. Again, this is the mine we go to up in Oregon, and just a really great place to go. I mean, the stars up there, just truly amazing. You know how clear things are, and you know it's one issue I have with this area is all the light pollution. You don't get to see the most beautiful thing that's right in front of us. You know, we totally mask it. And I don't know if any of you have seen the satellites that Elon Musk has put up, you know, but they're starting to dot the sky. My son saw them last week, and I don't know if it's 40 of them in a row, and it's just satellite after satellite. And eventually they're going to have 12,000 of them up there, and we will have a new sky to look at when all these satellites are up there. Sorry, nothing to do with gems, but something to do with nature. Did I give a price on that? Oh, and here's another piece of rough. I'll show you the...
Steve,
Yeah.
Well, you can
Oh,
explain
viewer
that,
question. Oh, sorry.
after your astrology lessons over. But one gentleman, and you could talk about it maybe with the rough that you have here, but I think it's a gentleman, I'm not sure. Is the schiller in the stone from copper? The suspended copper is what I mean.
Yes, it is copper.
Is the copper.
I prefer no copper. I would do without it. I know some people think that's what makes Sunstone attractive, but it really mutes the brilliance of a faceted stone. So for me, copperless is the way to go.
And for the people that don't know what schiller is.
Schiller is little platelets of copper that reflect light. And in the case of faceted stone, they stop light, is the reason I don't like it. Many of them have it. Most of the Sunstone have some schiller in it, and people think it looks great, but for a faceter, we're trying to create a brilliant stone, so no schiller is better for a faceted stone. My opinion. You know, not everybody agrees with that. So here's another piece of rough. Now this has two colors within it, and this is one of the things. This is tough to deal with as a faceter. Occasionally, I do have a really beautiful bicolor that I cut from one of these, so you can see this way is orange, and this is one of the problems with it is such a small zone down the center, you know, and trying to deal with the clear areas around it have a lot of effect on the finished stone. The more of the color you get into the stone, the better the stone tends to look. But you can see this direction, much more green. Sometimes it mixes and it doesn't always work well mixed. Some of the new faceting types, the fantasy cuts, I see some people doing some really nice work with fantasy cuts on this type of material, which I will try a little more of in the future. Whoop. I think I threw an Iolite on the floor. Okay. Oh, there it is. So our next stone up. Did I finish that stone? Hopefully. Yep. I've misplaced that one, Michael. There it is. We commonly are on the floor looking for stones. I probably spend 10% of my life looking for things we've thrown on the ground. They call that a jeweler's prayer meeting. So our next stone is a Malaya Garnet. This comes from Mahenge. Mahenge is the source of the pink spinels that have been so popular from Tanzania. Then in the same area, they started finding the garnets probably 4 or 5 years ago. Unfortunately, short-lived, whether it was because the people mining the spinels, this is one story I've heard, have kicked everybody out of the area because the spinels are so valuable that they don't want them in there, and primarily because they'll come in at night and mine on their own and steal material. So the miners do everything they can to keep people out of the area. But hopefully we'll get more of this material in the future. Just been difficult to come up with right now. Malaya Garnet is a Swahili word, actually. This material was originally found in Kangala, which was where almost all the rhodolite was coming from back in the 90s and early 2000s, till finally that deposit played out. But they started finding this color amongst the rhodolite. Rhodolite was very, very popular, and they just throw it out of the hole and say Malaya, meaning out of the family, or prostitute is a translation of it too, just really basically out of the family or outcast. And then after a while, they found out that it was more valued than the rhodolite garnets, and the value of it shot up pretty quickly, and it's just a difficult color to come up with. But Mahenge just produced some beautiful gems, and they've gone up significantly in value. I've told you before, if you've watched, that I had one 9-carat round that I tried to sell for probably a year and a half, and people complained about the price, but it was just incredible. And I finally gave it to my wife, and now the value of it has tripled from what I was asking for it, because there just isn't material this kind of quality, that kind of size. So it is a valuable color, and garnets are so desirable because of their brilliance. They have a high refractive index, which pretty much determines how brilliant a gem can be. You know, it's a reason diamond's so brilliant is because of high refractive index. And these have a diamond-like brilliance to them, and just beautiful colors. You know, so this is a Mahenge Malaya Garnet. Find the box for it. Organization's never been my thing. So it weighs 2.77 carats. Appraised value of $1,385. Our price $980, and another 15% off if you buy it today. You know, using the code GEMSHOW3, the coupon. So to find it, go to MoreGems.com and click on the green banner at the top of the first page, and you'll find all these stones available for purchase.
I'm up here in the corner, Steve.
Oh, and another question. Okay, you just jump right in, Jeff.
This may be related back to the Sunstone,
Uh-huh.
but let's see if I can find her name real quick. Pamela would like to know, dealing with pleochroic gems, the 3 colors on the different axes, what happens if you cut into a orb sphere and don't have the hard edges on which to see the axes of the color? Does shape impact color? Should I repeat that?
Yeah, well, it does. You know, some of the issues I've had with Sunstone is typically if you cut a stone like Sapphire, if you have just a zone of blue color And if you can get that color into the culet, and the only color is in the culet, it will spread through the whole stone. I've seen stones like this. You look from the side and there's no color except what's at the culet. You look from the top and it's just blue all over. It, for some reason, doesn't work with sunstone. You really, the color just doesn't distribute like you would expect it to, which creates problems. So cutting like you're talking about, I'm not sure what it would do. Cutting an orb. I don't know. Be interesting to find out. Can't tell you offhand. So that brings me to a question from last week that I couldn't tell you, but have found out now. Somebody asked about Spencer Opal, and I wasn't sure what it was, whether it was a synthetic or whatever. But it is from Spencer, Idaho. It is an opal that's mined in Idaho. And it's actually a fee mining place, just like the mines we went to in Virgin Valley in Nevada. So you can go mine Spencer Opal on a fee dig basis in Idaho. And if you want to put that question down on paper for me a little better, and maybe I have a better answer for it, but I'm not exactly sure the shape that you're talking about. But shape definitely has an effect on color, but more where the color is placed is more an effect necessarily than the shape of the stone. So typically you want to get the color either fully across the crown, the top of the stone, all the way girdle to girdle, or as much of it as you can into the culet will typically be two ways of spreading color is uneven. So, what's next, Mike? Is Montana Iolite? So Iolite is a stone. There's a stone called Andalusite we called a poor man's Alexandrite because it displays the two red and green colors in one direction in a stone, not due to color change. I suppose this would be the poor man's Tanzanite because it definitely has the color that you would see in Tanzanite. Probably not quite as vivid, but it is still a beautiful stone. So this does come from Tanzania, and you can see the color is much like Tanzanite. I don't think it quite changes so much in different lights as Tanzanite does, but it's still a beautiful color. This stone I haven't cut for years and finally got a little material to cut. And very pleasing stone, a little different than an emerald cut. I put a few more facets in it. But compared to Tanzanite, it's a bargain because this stone weighs 3 carat 2, appraised value of $966, our price $480. And 15% off that. So if this was Tanzanite, it'd be $2,000 for the stone. This stone is supposedly was used by the Vikings in navigation. We haven't proved that to be totally true because people can't quite get the gist of just how it works, but supposedly on overcast days or when the sun's gone down, which if you're a Viking, the sun's down quite a bit and it's twilight a lot. So what it supposedly does is able to pinpoint where the sun's at when you can't exactly see the sun. So when it's below the horizon and it's twilight, or on a cloudy day, supposedly you can use it to pick up the direction of the sun, and it was used for navigation until we had compasses and then satellites. So Iolite's also called cordierite is the other name for it. And question, Jeff?
Yeah. So how can you, if somebody brought in an Iolite and a Tanzanite, how would you be able to tell the difference?
Glad you asked that question. So my recent purchase, and one, if you're into gems, you should own this piece of equipment. Last week we talked about the dichroscope, another very important piece of equipment. But the most important piece of equipment in the business is the Gem Refractometer. The problem with refractometers is they've been so expensive. You know, mine that I bought when I started training, $700. I'm not sure where they're at these days, but expensive piece of equipment. This one I just purchased. I bought it on Amazon, and we'll give you the links to these. Where are the links going to be, Jeff?
Yeah, the links are right within the description of the show, right below the YouTube channel or the YouTube video. And I'm going to also be posting them in chat.
Okay. So this is available on Amazon. This is $62. Something everybody can afford. And this will identify 90% of all the gems you could look at. You know, it'll tell you what it is. The only thing it's not going to tell you is whether it's a synthetic or a natural stone, because synthetics and naturals react to light exactly the same. But any of the gems we're showing tonight, I can run them on this piece of equipment and what it's going to do. So I bought these before, but I've had problems with them with batteries. They wear the batteries out in no time. If you forget to turn it off, your batteries are gone. The batteries are $15. But now they have a separate light, so if something happens to the light, you just use a different light. This screws into the back of it. You know, if this light goes out, you can use any light source. So what you do, there is an accessory to this, which I don't have with me, and that's the refractive index fluid. And there's a link also for the fluid, because you do have to buy fluid also, because what you do, you drop a piece of fluid on this hemisphere here. You have to be careful with the hemisphere because you can easily damage it. It's pretty soft. It's calcite, very soft material. So actually what you're going to do is put a drop of fluid on it, and then you're going to set the gem on top of the drop of fluid and close the lid, you know, turn the light on, and I don't know if we can see inside it. Probably not. But anyway, when you look inside it, it's going to read out a number. And the number is going to be unique to every one of these gemstones. So it's going to tell you the number for this tourmaline that I showed you is 162 to 164. And that's going to tell you it's a tourmaline. You know, a couple of things you have to be aware of is each crystal has 3 axes. They've got an A and a B axis, and the C axis runs down, generally down the length of a crystal. So in the case of this long crystal, this would be the A and the B axis, and down the long end would be the C axis. So this is a dichroic, or it's a dichroic gem, whereas it's doubly refractive. So you're going to get 2 numbers on this. This is probably getting too involved, but anyway, there's a manual with it. But this piece of equipment for $62, I've used it, and it gives you the right numbers, and it'll tell you that your stone is a natural. So the difference between cordierite, iolite, and tanzanite, 2 different numbers it's going to come up with, and it's going to literally tell you one from the other. So you're going to be safe in buying stones and be able to ID them for the most part, other than synthetics. And Iolite or Tanzanite, there are no synthetics. So anything you put on it that looks similar to it that's not a Tanzanite, it's going to come up a different number. So you're going to know that it's not a Tanzanite. So this is a really good piece of equipment that's cheap these days. It works, and I recommend it highly. And this combined with the dichroscope we talked about last week, you're going to have less than $100 in the 3 pieces of equipment, because this is $62. The fluid is $18 to $30. There is a higher refractive index fluid. The fluids are rated by their refractive index, and this will check stones up to 1.81, which would include spessartites and blue zircon. But the fluid that is cheaper won't test those stones. It'll test all stones of less refractive index. But a worthwhile investment. It's a Gem Refractometer, available on Amazon. Okay. Thanks for the question. Where are we? Okay, Montana Sapphire. So Montana Sapphire has become very popular. A lot of the unusual colors that come out of there are a little different than other sources. I feel like the absent-minded professor here trying to find my stones. Okay, we'll do without it. But this is a really nice Montana. The Montanas change significantly in different lights. This particular stone will be more blue in daylight. It's a really pretty blue color in daylight. And when you get it in incandescent, it brings on a green tone, kind of a teal color. These colors have been remarkably popular. Some of the spinels, they're calling gray spinels. They're not as blue as this stone, but even that color just has been a popular color. And this is kind of an upgrade to a gray spinel, just a prettier blue color. There we go. Found it. So this particular sapphire weighs a carat 63. Praise value $2,350. Our price $1,390. And let me show you that on a mounting. And a perfect size for this mounting. And all these stones we can custom make in a mounting, any type of metal. So that really just fits this mounting. So it's an 8 by 6 millimeter. Again, a carat 63. This comes from Rock Creek in Montana. And Montana, the demand for Montana has changed dramatically. And it's another place that you can go and do fee mining. Gem Mountain is in Montana near Billings. A lot of this material also comes from the Missouri River. El Dorado Bar is one. But there's quite a few places you can fee mine out there also. So if you're interested in this stone, you can visit MoreGems.com. And again, the green bar at the top is you click on that and it will display all of these stones. Hopefully this year maybe we'll get up there with my two sons and try mining there. You know, it looks like fun, and finding a nice sapphire would be an exciting thing because generally the value is much greater. What else sold there, Jeff?
You want to take another guess?
No.
No. All right. It was
Let's pick
Sunstone.
The Sunstone.
Yep.
Oh, cool. The orange one or the?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, you'll love it. Yeah, Sunstone, really a cool gem, and that color. For the last 10 years, there's been something called andesine, which is very similar to Sunstone. It's a feldspar. Both of them are from the feldspar group. And andesine had been marketed heavily on TV. I'm not going to say which TV station, but they marketed a huge amount of this andesine. Really an intense color, and most people in the business just couldn't believe it could be real because of the intensity and beauty of the stone. So eventually it turned out not to be real. It was probably diffused. I'm not sure how they got the color, but diffusion is heating the material in a gas that diffuses into the stone and creates a color that's deeper than skin deep. But it turned out this material, the color was not natural, and the company that sold probably millions of dollars, they got into a lawsuit, and they did settle on the material. But andesine, if you own any, unfortunately, it's not real color. But this material is real color. Bought it at the mines. Really something you can trust as being a natural and a beautiful gem. Okay, what's next? Another pink sapphire. So this material is from Madagascar. And this is material that when I was traveling to Madagascar, my last trip was 2008. I bought this material in Ilakaka. Ilakaka was a source of sapphire that started producing in 1997. I started traveling there in 2001. A friend of mine, Tom Cushman, talked me into going there just because I could see all the killer gems he was getting out of Madagascar. And these stones out of Ilakaka really changed the whole world market for sapphire. At the time, sapphires dropped dramatically in price because of this source produced such a huge quantity. And as I told you, the Sri Lankans were saying it was all Ceylon material or Sri Lankan material. But most of it at the time was from Madagascar. This source, they found it in a riverbed in Ilakaka, and within a year, this middle of the desert turned into a large, sprawling community, probably as many as 50,000 people there mining sapphire. Currently, very little production there. Still producing some, but nothing like they did originally. So they got pinks and blues and a lot of different colors out of there, and really some extraordinary gems. And this is one of them. This stone, I still have material to cut, but this one is really a beautiful pink color. It's really a nicely cut stone. And if I could get it, it's hard to get set in here. But good size for a ring. Again, another stone that's an everyday wear, engagement ring. Definitely something to consider. Just a remarkably beautiful color. This stone weighs, carat 12. Big face size for a carat 12 because it's not very deep. But it is deep enough that it does reflect completely, no window in the stone. Nice and clean, beautiful color. Appraised value of $5,180. This appraises high because it's natural. There's no heat involved in this stone, and that significantly increases the value of the material being no heat material. So it appraises $5,180. Our price is $1,680, and of course 15% off with Gem Show 3. Question, Jeff?
With the pink sapphire, you mentioned that being popular for engagement rings. If the woman's looking for, say, a pink diamond, could this be a good replacement for that?
Sure. Yeah, for about a thousandth of the price. You know, pink diamond, a carat pink diamond that looked like this, I'm guessing 150,000. You know, and pink diamonds now have gotten much more difficult to get because most of them came from the Argyle mine, and Argyle is closing completely soon. May have closed already, but I know the production was down so much that I believe they're closing up. Don't quote me on that, but I think that's true. Not big into diamonds, although we do a lot of diamonds, but color's my thing, and pink sapphire being a good hard stone and probably a prettier pink than most pink diamonds. You know, and again, it's, what is that? I'm not even sure what that is percentage-wise, but 1,600 compared to 660,000 maybe, you know, would be the comparison. So hopefully I can get back to Madagascar someday because it definitely is my favorite country of all I've been to. You know, they have the widest variety of stones, and the sapphires from there have been extraordinary. And I know there's still more sapphire to be found there and many more gems to be found there. It really will be a country that'll produce for years. And next up, another one of our favorites. This is blue zircon. Blue zircon comes from Kampuchea, formerly known as Cambodia. This particular material has a diamond-like brilliance, and that's because of very high refractive index. This is one of those stones that our refractometer will not be able to read easily. It's at the limit of the refractometer. The high refractive index gives it that great brilliance, and the color of this stone is really intense for blue zircon. Most blue zircon is much lighter. Not that that's an issue, because even the light stones are just beautiful. You cut blue zircon right, and it's just a beautiful gem. It's a blue color, like intense sapphire, and like an intense blue topaz, but it has a greenish secondary color that just makes it a little more unique. You know, this is material we've always sold very well. These deep colors are limited supply, but I have very good suppliers for this material directly from Kampuchea. So this is just a really nice stone. It weighs quite unorganized today. Weighs 2.53 carats. The appraised price is $750. Our price $330. So today you're going to be in the mid 200s, upper 200s price wise for this stone, and it's a nice size stone to be mounted into a ring, and it's plenty hard. Zircon is a good hard stone also, so it'll take the wear of a ring. You know, the only things that happen to blue zircon over long periods of time, you're going to see little chips all around the facet edges. I've seen stones in the antique markets from back in the probably 40s, 50s, and you just look at it and you know it's a blue zircon because of all the little chips around the facet edges. You know. Sorry about the phone. We forgot to shut them down tonight. But so the blue zircon, worthy stone of owning, and very reasonable material for the quality of this gem. Viewer question.
I'm back. A couple questions on the blue zircon. First question: does it fluoresce?
I don't believe so. Let's get
Fluoresce.
our UV light out and check it. You know, the UV light makes it more green, but I don't think it fluoresces. You can't really, it looks more green under this light, but I don't think we're getting a fluorescent. If Chris Clemens is out there, maybe he can shed some light on this. Blue zircon fluorescent, I don't think it is. I think we've tested it. I don't think it is. Chris is our fluorescent expert. He's the president of the Midwest chapter of the Fluorescent Mineral Society. So he's pretty well versed on what fluoresces and what doesn't. So we'll be hoping to hear from him shortly. Check your chat, and if he's around tonight, he can tell us more. But it doesn't look like it fluoresces.
Okay. And we call this a round mixed cut. Is there any difference between just a round cut and a mixed?
Well, mixed cut means that the pavilion of this stone is a step cut. And the crown is a brilliant style, and it's a common way of cutting stones overseas. And I do quite a few mixed cuts, but if you look at the top of this stone, it's cut like a diamond would be cut, but the back of it is cut step cut. Steps just mean they're like steps. They line up. Better check it to make sure that's exactly what it is, but I'm sure. Well, it's a modification of that also, because there you can see they're not exactly steps, but the facets below what are reflecting right now in the picture, they are steps, I will believe. So really, it is basically a step cut, with some modification right under the girdle of the stone, but mixed cut just because it's brilliant style crown, step cut pavilion. Yeah. And next stone up is a sphene. You see sphenes on our show often. They've sold well, and it just is a really remarkable gem. I'll show it on a ring, but really it's not safe in a ring. The hardness is not great enough. The durability is not great enough. Really, a pendant stone is where it should be. Sphene is remarkable for its dispersion. If you catch the light right, in certain lights, you'll just see colors everywhere. I mean, dispersion is a breakup of white light into spectral colors, and sphene does it dramatically. Diamond is well known for its dispersion, but sphene just blows it away. You see so many colors that coming out of this sphene, and that's what makes it such a popular gem. But pendant only, you can do them in earrings. We often have earring stones. But here in this picture, you can see the different colors that it's showing, and that's what's known as dispersion. This particular stone came from Madagascar. Madagascar production is way down. While I was going to Madagascar, this material was discovered in the north of Madagascar, and they produced a lot of really fine gems. And in the early days, you would see some very large gems, and on rare occasion, you still do see 50-carat stones. I do own one that's a 16-carat stone from previous trips to Madagascar. But just a fun stone to own. Everybody loves the look of this gem, and seeing the amount of colors that comes out of it, you just don't see it in other gems. There's another gem called sphalerite, which does a similar effect. And sometime in the near future, I do have some sphalerite to cut because it's an incredible stone also. But it's even much softer than what sphene is, and has 6-way perfect cleavage. So you're just lucky to get it into a mounting. That it has so many issues, but to see sphalerite and sphene, they're both stones that just have a remarkable way that they deal with light, and it's just an effect that few other stones will produce the kind of effect you see in sphene. This stone is appraised value of $1,180. Our price $590, and today, of course, with Gem Show 3, you'll get another 15% off that. You know, sphene is a stone I'm always looking for, mainly because it sells. You know, people see it and they just want to own it. So that's the kind of stones I like to own for short periods. Okay, next stone up is a pink tourmaline, huh? And there it is. Okay, this is a pink tourmaline from Mozambique. This is one, last week we had a copper-bearing pink tourmaline. I doubt that, I don't know if this is copper-bearing, but it doesn't make a difference. It's just a pretty pink color in our most popular cut. You know, this cut, the Portuguese cut, is the most saleable cut we have. I'll cut them whenever the material is right, but it takes a deep piece of rough, and often rough is just not deep enough to produce this cut. So you either cut a round brilliant or you cut a Portuguese cut. You can see how deep it is, but that's what gives it the effect. You know, you get a spiraling effect out of the stone that you don't see in other cuts. It's 161 facets, so it's a little tedious to cut, but well worth it in the end because of the sparkle that you get out of it. Just a popular cut. You know, it's like, I think we had a Tanzanite last week that sold, and, you know, it's just people see the cut, they want to own it. You know, so not my favorite cut to do just because of the amount of facets, but I'll do it whenever I can because I know it's a saleable gem. Really nice pink color on this stone, clean stone. This one weighs 253. Weighs 2.53 carats, 7.7 millimeters. 1820 is the appraised price on the stone. Our price $820. This actually, I didn't cut it. Marcia Tokarski cut it for us. She cut it here in our shop, but did a really nice job. Beautiful job of cutting. And our next stone is another Tanzanite. This is a recut. Recutting generally doesn't work just because of the huge amount of weight loss you get. In most stones that I've recut, I lose 30%, and it's hard to get the money back for all the weight loss. But when you've got a stone that's not cut perfectly well and you recut it, you get a stone that looks like this. You know, it's really a beautiful gem. Fortunately, this stone was a good one for recutting. I only lost about 15%. So it became a worthwhile thing to do because the amount of brilliance you get in a properly cut stone is significantly different. You know, because most of the Tanzanites are cut in India or in Tanzania. And in general, they don't spend the time to cut. They don't polish correctly. They are more concerned about weight than beauty. So I wish I was in control of all the cutting of Tanzanite, but getting Tanzanite rough is tough, and recutting is not a profitable thing. So it's difficult to get really well-cut stones. I say that, but the people in India are getting better at cutting, and my cutters in Tanzania have really come a long way. You know, the schools are training them well, and so cutting is getting better worldwide. I still think U.S. cutters are better, but they've made remarkable strides in the cutting. But this is, back to the stone, really a nice stone, just a beautiful gem, weighs a carat 65, appraised value of $1,485, $825 is our price. Of course, the 15% off with Gem Show 3. So the color on this stone, I think, I have an overall quality grading of 956. Just a beautiful color, exceptional color. To get that higher grade has to be flawless, and the cutting quality, of course, is top. So it gets a very high grade all around. Nice size for a ring. Got a sale. I'm not guessing.
No,
what is it?
There's one of the colors I love, but it was the blue Zircon.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
All right, good. You'll love the stone. Yeah, it's something that you wear it and it just sparkles like crazy. It's hard to find another gem that's as brilliant. This Tanzanite's not bad though. All right, trying to think if there's anything else I was going to discuss. No. So the next stone is a pink topaz. Topaz in pink colors is remarkably rare, especially with this intensive color. When one of my first trips out of the country was to Brazil. I went with a friend, Jim Fiebig, which I mentioned before. We traveled for 20 years together. We went to Brazil, mostly tourmalines we bought. We took a trip to Ouro Preto, and just outside of Ouro Preto is a little town called Rodrigo de Silva, and the Capao mine that produces this topaz, we tried to find and never found it. I think I relayed this story. We passed right up. I mean, it was so close to the road, we could have thrown a rock and hit the mine, but we passed it right up and drove for 2 hours and never did get to the mine. But it was a cool trip in a Volkswagen with no interior lights, and we ran out of gas on the way back. So it was interesting place out in the middle of Brazil with a car that wasn't running. So it was quite a trip. But this stone's probably heated. You can take the material that's top Imperial Topaz and you can heat it to get to a pink color. Generally not done because the Imperial color is beautiful on its own and you take risks in heating, but this color is just such a pure pink. It's hard to get a pinker gem than this. Very valued stone. This is a stone that appraises at $6,080. Our price of $33.97. It weighs 2 carat 99. So another 500 off that. So it's going to be 2,800-ish with the coupon code. The stone still a good ring size, and topaz is a good tough stone also. All right, here's another mounting. This one actually has a halo of diamonds around it and diamonds down the shank. Very difficult to get these stones to sit in there correctly. There we go. Tough to see in green wax, but again, it has diamonds around it, and just a really pretty stone. It's been many, many years since I had a topaz that looked like this. Again, a really hard stone, so very wearable, kind of a everyday wearable type stone. Any other questions I can answer? Nothing at the moment?
Nope. Have a few.
Oh, okay. Okay, we got some questions.
First, just wanted to mention that Chris Clemens did respond. He is
Okay.
watching.
Yeah, hi, Chris.
He said, Steve, zircons do fluoresce mostly brightly under short-wave UV.
Okay.
We've checked quite a few of your blue zircons, but none showed any response.
Did we? Okay. So some zircons do, but these don't? unless it's shortwave. Is that
Under shortwave.
under shortwave? Which the light I have is a long wave, so under shortwave we get some response. Thanks, Chris. And Chris helped me out with the Spencer Opal question from last week. So, Chris, I appreciate all your help. Keep watching and answer some of the questions I can't. All right, folks, remember, shop online at MoreGems.com.
And we got more questions.
Oh.
I know you're trying to get out
Okay.
over here.
Well, hey, go ahead.
But
Sorry.
you're right. Yeah, MoreGems.com is where you can purchase all these. Mother's Day is coming up. And we're able,
True.
if somebody orders today, tomorrow, what's the cutoff for Mother's Day to get some of these stones out?
To get the stones out or to mount them?
Well, how about both?
Well, we ship overnight, so I mean you can get things in a day, assuming the shipping service. But they've been really good. So a day or two as far as shipping, mounting something. Sometimes we have mountings that fit, and we can put something together. Can be done sometimes in a day. Typically not. A complete custom piece can take 3 weeks. But we do the best we can to get something together for you if you need it for a date. We also do mother's rings. We have mothersfamilyrings.com, which we are still producing mother's rings. We use all genuine stones, and our stones that we use for the birthstones are top quality stones, and we're still putting together custom rings, and that's on mothersfamilyrings.com. Our cutoff is probably next Monday. For the last day that we'll take an order and get it out for Mother's Day. So keep that in mind, and keep in mind, yes, Mother's Day, a nice stone for her. We can mount it later. Anything you need, but we're here to help you and make a nice piece of jewelry.
All right. So we got a few questions.
Okay.
And if anybody else has any questions, now's the time to throw them in the chat box and we can get them answered. One question. For Sapphire, is there ever any oil treatment done?
Oil is not something that's done, but there's many treatments. Most sapphires are heated. A great percentage of them are heated. Maybe 90% of all sapphire is heated. Other treatments are diffusion. Diffusion came about in the early 80s, and diffusion, like I talked about andesine, they take a sapphire and put it in under high heat and put chemicals in, and it actually diffuses into the crystal. So it's not just the surface treatment, it goes into the crystal. And they've done this with blues, some of the intense oranges, things like pot parachas. Many of those are diffused. The pot paracha is a very rare sapphire. We have one big 4-carat, a beautiful stone. It's the peach color. It's like the Malaya that I showed you. They're just kind of they're pink orange to orange pink. And that color started hitting the market. I don't know, I was in Tucson and a guy showed me a stone and he told me the price. I said, well, that's not real, because there was no way that it was right at the price he offered. And by the end of the show, GIA out there had determined that they started diffusing pink sapphires with beryllium, and this produced that peach color, which is so valued. But so there are many treatments, but oil is not typically one of them. I don't know if you oiled some, for oil to take effect, it's got to be a fairly open crack. We oil emeralds, and these days it's mostly epoxy filling, but emeralds are filled. So there are oiling of some gems, but sapphire, to my knowledge, is not one of them.
Okay. Good answer. Do you have the Montana sapphire still laying there?
Somewhere.
Eileen wants to know like the hardness of the stone, and if it's good for daily wear and a ring and a pendant.
Yes. Well, ring for sure. I mean, sapphire, of all the gems I've shown tonight, is the hardest stone. 9 hardness. Diamond is 10. big difference between 9 and 10, though. Some say as much as 100 times the hardness. So diamond is remarkably hard, but sapphire is very hard stone and will take the wear of every day. There is some difference with heat treatment of sapphire. Some of the sapphires are heated very high temperature, and those can tend to abrade easier. I see it when I cut stones. When I cut a sapphire that is heated, I can tell the difference because when you're cutting it, it literally chunks of it come out. Makes it very hard to polish, takes a lot longer to polish. And when you cut a natural unheated stone, it's just much smoother. So the high heating, because they heat them close to the melting point of a sapphire to either diffuse titanium that's in the crystal to make it more blue, is the reason for the high heating, and they can also affect clarity on the stone, but that high heat does something to the crystal structure that makes it less stable and more prone to damage.
Okay. Hopefully that answers your question, Eileen. Next one, it's a question on caring for opal after it's cabbed, and how do you care for opal after it's cabbed, and you recommend setting it in silver, Ethiopian opal?
Well, what you set it in is your choice. I mean, unless you're talking about color in white, and maybe you're talking, silver, white, gold. Looks good in both. I mean, I like yellow gold, but white is what's selling, so we set much of it in white. The only drawback of white metals is they're harder to set than yellow metals. And when you're dealing with an opal, much softer stone, easier to damage. So yellow metals, the jeweler will be happier to set it in, but we set them in white all the time. So I don't necessarily see a preference as far as which they look better in. What was the rest of the question?
Caring for it after.
Caring for it. Well, as far as Wheelo opals, avoid contact with other chemicals. A Wheelo opal, if you get it wet for 5 minutes or, washing your hands typically won't do it. But if you get it wet enough, it's going to absorb into the opal. It's going to turn it milky, but given the time, I mean, a day to 5 days, it'll dry out and the color comes back. So you don't want to get it wet. You'd rather not, because it's not going to look good the next day. I once wore an opal out to Tucson and washed some clothes in the sink and not thinking about my opal at the time. So for the rest of the Tucson show, I was out there for the rest of the week. It just had no good color, but by the time I got home, the color came back, and although it seems like a disadvantage, it's really an advantage. Hydrophane opals can take on water, lose water, and not damage, whereas other opals from other sources, including some from Australia, if they have enough water in them, as they dry out, they tend to crack and craze. Whereas the Wheelo opal won't do this. But you do have to be careful getting other chemicals in them. Oils, they'll absorb oils, they'll absorb dyes. So you want to avoid this because it will affect the look of the opal and can damage it. So just keep it safe from chemicals. And so the best place for it's in a pendant. We do them in rings regular, but much safer in a pendant, less risk of getting in contact with oils particularly. And, hand creams, you want to avoid hand creams on Wheelo opals. And
what
so,
about, popular right now, hand sanitizers.
Yeah,
overall,
I don't know if those will have an effect or not. I should try it. Matter of fact, I'll try it, and by next week I'll know what hand sanitizer does to it. It may take longer than that, but good question, But mostly, they're glycerins. It's probably not something you want to get on it either. So,
okay.
we'll find out.
couple questions came in as far as creating a custom ring. Like someone buys a stone here and they want it set into a custom design. Now this can be a wide range, but any general idea of the price range that people can expect for a custom piece to match some of these stones?
500 to 5,000. Yeah, there's a lot of ways of doing it. The most expensive way is complete custom with Chris designing the piece. Going to be a little more involved, more time, but you're probably for a custom piece that Chris does, you're probably looking at $1,000 to start. I haven't been pricing things lately and know exactly. Alice would be much better at that. But we have other ways. There's a lot of stock pieces that we do. We've got probably 500 mountings we've already custom made that either can be altered slightly or used as is. Makes it less expensive because typically it takes a day and a half to custom make a piece. So there's typically a $300 charge for a complete custom job, and we have stock mountings that are available to us that is the cheapest way to do it. We don't have to do anything other than set it, if it's a standard size, like the Sunstone that's sold will be a standard size. There'll be standard mountings that fit it. A lot of these stones are unique shapes, and you do have to completely custom make a piece. So either Chris has to do it, or we have another program that we all can design on. It's a design program for dummies because I can do it, but less involved, but you can do less with it. So we don't charge to do a custom piece with that. It's called Counter Sketch. It's a lesser version of what Chris uses to design with. He has full capabilities to do anything. We have limited capabilities. We alter pieces on this Counter Sketch.
Okay, perfect. A few more questions coming in here. Now I know I don't think we've ever shown apatites on the show, but Gary says he has a neon Peridot apatite that seems to glow in the dark. Is that normal for a gem?
I guess I question the glow in the dark. I've got a lot of apatites, and they are a neon-looking color. They're not like Peridot that they generally glow, but they're similar. I'd have to see your stone and know where the source of it. I mean, if it's Madagascar, I'm well familiar with Madagascar apatites. They're an amazing color. Not very durable, pendant only. I see the TV shows selling them in rings, and I go, well, that's a one-day ring. You wear it one day and then you replace it because apatite just will not hold up in a ring. But as a pendant, it's a beautiful stone. It looks like Bicolor Tourmaline, is why they call it Bicolor. It has no relationship to Bicolor. I don't believe there's any copper in it. Does not generally glow. It may give you the feel of glowing, but if yours glows, I want to see it.
All right. And we do have, on MoreGems.com, there are some apatite, correct?
Yeah.
People want to see what it looks like.
Yes. Yeah, we have apatites. I don't put them on there a lot because there's always some very faint, very minor inclusions in them. In person, they'll show up as eye clean, but when you take a picture of them with a macro camera with lights on them, everything inside just lights up, and it's very difficult to photograph them to represent them as they look. So when you look at them on the site, they look like they're included, but in person they appear clean. It's just the nature of that type of photography. I have a hard time photographing emeralds, rubies, apatites, spessartite garnets. They can look beautiful in person, but when you photograph them, they look terrible. So they don't often hit the website because of that, because nobody's going to buy them. They think they look included, but in person they don't. One day I'll figure out how to photograph those stones, but currently it's not possible.
Good to know. James wants to know, Steve, Did you ever cut some of that beautiful green beryl from Madagascar?
I haven't cut it. You're talking about aqua, basically, I believe. If it's blue-green, kind of teal color, I bought many from Madagascar that are just beautiful. They're, whether you call them beryl or, most of the green beryl I've seen came from Nigeria. There were some great green beryls that came out of there, and I may have some of those in the future. I've got a friend that bought material a long time ago, and he wants to try and market it through me because those green beryls that came out of Nigeria were really incredible. So I'm not exactly sure which beryls he's talking about, unless it is the aquas that kind of had the teal looking color, just because they had some green in them. Most aquas have green in them, but we heat it out to make them blue because the green really distorts the color to an unattractive color. But some of them with the green can be really a beautiful teal color. So,
hope that answers your question, James. We've got a few questions about some of the stones. Have you ever seen them? Have you ever cut them or carried them? Jadeite, Germjavite. Probably butchering that name.
Germjavite.
Jadeite, or Turkish diaspora.
Well, I haven't cut Turkish diaspora, but the friend Jim I talk about that traveled it, he was the world, what was his title? The world sales manager for Zoltanite. So I'm very familiar with Zoltanite. Didn't have a lot of respect for the stone just because you had to buy a 5 carat or bigger to have any dramatic color change that they tout about the stone. Wasn't a big fan, but I sold several, and particularly over 10 carat, they can be striking. I just find some of the other color change stones more interesting. So it was a little difficulty not loving a stone that one of your best friends was deeply involved with, So, but it's a cool stone, very difficult to cut, I've heard. I haven't cut one. It's probably like kunzite, just a lot of problems in orientation and fracturing while you're cutting it. Germjavite, not sure exact pronunciation either. Don't think I've ever owned one, ever cut one. And jadeite, I have cut it, not real successfully, and I don't deal much in jadeite because of the difficulty in identification. There are a lot of treatments that require specialized equipment to identify whether it's treated or not, and jadeite can be remarkably expensive. So you really have to have a good source for it, and not a lot of it gets here to the U.S. Mostly sold in China, and Asia is where most of it goes to. And if you look at some of the auctions, the amount of money spent on jadeite is just incredible. A stone that's $20,000 a carat is not unusual, and I don't have the market for it, so I don't cut it.
Someone asked about, with all, we showed some amazing Tanzanite tonight, and we do have a large collection. He was wanting to know how big your Tanzanite rough stash is.
Almost zero. Very difficult to get rough. The legality of export has changed dramatically over time. It was that you couldn't export anything over a gram, and then it became 2 gram, and now I'm not sure what the legality of export is. Some of it gets out of the country. It always has, and that's what they're trying to stop now, is the illegal exports of the material, because most of the material that's been cut, that's been sold in the world, has been cut in India and not in Tanzania. So there's been a lot of export that hasn't quite met the rules. So I have very little rough. I hope that rough will be more available, that I can cut it, because I generally like what I cut better than what I can buy. But again, The two cutters that I currently use are doing remarkably good cutting, and what I've bought recently, I look at it and I go, I would be proud of cutting that stone. So they are getting much better, at cutting, but it's nice to have it in your own hands to cut the material. You get to choose what comes out of the stone, and cuts that work. And they typically are not cutting, they're mostly cutting ovals and pretty much standard style of cutting. But one of the cutters I use in Tanzania, they are pretty remarkable. But that's because of the schools that are training there now. They're taught by people that know how to cut. So the cutting is getting much better in Tanzania, and I hope that continues. But I'll be there hopefully with my two sons sometime later this year when things straighten out, and I would love to see it that they would start exporting rough and letting us cut some of it here, because much of it is butchered. I mean, literally butchered, needs to be recut. But again, when you cut a stone, you lose 50% or more to start, usually 60, 70%. And if you try and recut it, lose another 30%, it's just not going to work out in the end. You'd have to get $1,000 a carat for it in this market that's, $600-700 a carat to be recutting stones. So, it's kind of the situation at the moment. But always changing, Hopefully I'll be able to buy rough this next trip, and legally export would be great.
All right, back to your other favorite stone. You love the stone, but that's not the question. You ever cut Australian sunstone, and how does it differ from the sunstone from
I have no idea what Australian sunstone looks like.
The rainbow lattice.
I can't say I've ever seen it. Never had it to cut. I get some material from Tanzania, and it's mostly solid schiller. I mean, it's just just highly reflective. I have rough, and I've cut it a few times, but it doesn't excite me. So I generally don't cut sunstones other than the Oregon material. Okay. But I'd have to look and see what Australian sunstone looks like. I can't say I've seen it. Never been to Australia.
Two biggest spiders over there.
Two what?
Big ones.
Oh,
Big
yeah.
spiders
Yeah. I don't like deadly spiders.
No.
Or big crocodiles.
Yeah, if you watch those YouTube videos, nope, not for me.
Yeah, Parker from Gold Rush. Yeah, well, he's over there.
Thanks for the update.
Which their company actually contacted me and were considering doing a Tanzanite, have him going over and mining Tanzanite. Nothing ever came of it, but it was interesting for them to call and maybe have an interest in me taking them over there and going for Tanzanite, which would have been cool. It'd have been fun.
Let's see Mom allowing that.
Parker Schnavel. Hi, Parker, if you're watching.
Steve, I'm having trouble with poor polish. Do I need more grits in between form and polish, or just better laps?
Tough question, not knowing what you're doing.
I had a question about quartz previously, so maybe it deals with quartz.
Well, I mean, if you go and watch our videos I have one on cutting quartz and cutting other gems. I use a bat lap and it goes through the whole process of cutting, and I think you'll better understand what it takes from those videos. So just go to YouTube and More Gems and look for our cutting videos, and I explain the process I use completely. One of them is like a 7 or 8 different segments on the full process of cutting. So if you look there, maybe you'll get a better idea. And then ask me some questions, because not knowing what you're using currently, it's hard to tell you what your problems are. But everybody has problems polishing. It's just a difficult thing, and particularly quartz.
Gotcha. All right, I think that is it for most of the questions. Hopefully, if we didn't get to somebody's question, there were a lot of them. You can definitely email us at sales@MoreGems.com. Otherwise, you can probably save it for next week, right?
All right. Yeah, we'll be here next Wednesday, 7:05. Not sure what we're going to do exactly, but hopefully you'll find it interesting. All right, folks, remember, shop online at MoreGems.com, as well as subscribe to us on YouTube at MoreGems. That's going to do it for us today, and I want to thank everybody for joining us. Sign up for alerts for when we go live. Also, check out our video links and info at the button at the bottom of the screen. I had to read this. They wanted me to memorize all this stuff, but so until next time, I'm Steve Moriarty. Keep on gemming.